Today, we're going to be speaking more about how the war is affecting the whole financial situation in terms of the market. And what's going on, guys? Welcome to That NFT podcast. I'm your host, I'm Kieran Headley. And today we're going to be talking about something that is quite a sensitive topic for pretty much the entire world. I won't even just say many, it's literally the entire world. But also as well, I want to express the importance around how crucial it is to be looking at the financial side of things, even though there's so much going on in the world, because at the end of the day, our worry, our concern, our prayers, at the end of the day, that's all we can really give to the situation that's going on in Ukraine and Russia. So that's what I want to talk about really briefly today. As you know, I want to keep it as brief as possible. I'm not going to dive into the sensitivities. That's not what this podcast is about, of course. And you know, I am an anxiety coach, so I do work with people that are suffering anxiety, and particularly people that are even suffering, you know, fear around this situation. So yeah, if that's more on your end and your interest, then, you know, head to my Instagram, Coach Keza. You better find it probably in the description below, so head there. But otherwise, today we're going to be speaking more about how the war is affecting the whole financial situation in terms of the market. All right, and when I talk about the market, I'm referring more to, you know, the Web3 market. So, you know, NFTs, cryptocurrency and all the rest, not so much stocks. I know frick all about stocks, to be honest. I've invested in the past, but that's not really my area of expertise. You know, made some great gains, but that was thanks to the advice of a friend, not because of me, actually. So yeah, I'm not the one to advise there. Anyway, that aside, I do want to speak about this. I think it's very crucial, especially since this whole situation is going on. And honestly, I'm sending my prayers and my love and my hopes for quite literally all people of Ukraine and Russia, because I've got friends that are both from Ukraine and from Russia. I think I've got one friend currently in Ukraine, and I've got one really good friend as well in Russia. Which is really interesting, right? And I love them dearly, both. And honestly, a lot of the stuff that's interesting that, you know, is going on in the media isn't actually affecting them directly, regardless of, you know, what's going on, you know, in those countries. So it's really interesting how, you know, on our phones and quite literally in front of our eyes, we're seeing this war unfold, which is terrifying, of course. But at the same time, realizing that, of course, naturally, all the focus is going to be on the biggest, the most horrific, the most sorrowful, the most disheartening events, because that's what gets our attention, and that's what, you know, the media gets the most bang for buck for showcasing. So just remembering that, guys, it's so important to realize that, because, you know, there's even though it's terrifying and it's horrible, this kind of stuff's actually been happening for a long time. And I'm not just talking about Ukraine and Russia, of course. You know, of course, this is the peak of it at the moment in modern times. Of course, this stuff has happened in fairly recent history too, but also as well in other countries. You know, you look at a lot of the countries in the Middle East, there's been so much going on there that's just as bad. You know, you could even argue, if not worse, yet it's been going so much so under the radar of, you know, the general people's concern, essentially, because it's not in some way indirectly going to be affecting them in any shape or form, apart from the fact that it's a bit dangerous to travel to the Middle East, obviously. So, you know, hence why it's now currently in Europe. You know, of course, our attention is going to it, but realizing that since it's now, just because it's going into Europe, doesn't mean all of a sudden the entire market's going to go south, which is what a lot of people are concerned about. So that's what I want to talk about today, because even though, of course, like I said, even though it's a very sensitive situation, there's a lot going on, and honestly, I can't even fathom what it would be like to be going through that. I'm too young, too naive to actually know. So I have to, you know, say that, because I can only know what I know, right? I can only know what I've experienced. So yeah, I just can't even fathom what it's like. So much love and concern, especially if you're from there, if you're listening to this. Yeah, all my love, guys, truly. So with that being said, it is important, like as I mentioned, to actually put attention on this type of stuff, because at the end of the day, it's many people's net worth. It could even be your net worth at stake. And if you're not really thinking about this stuff, and you know, you're sort of, you know, throwing it to the side, or you're throwing NFTs and crypto to the side because it's like really important to have liquid, which it is, then you could actually be hurting yourself and shooting yourself in the foot during this situation where it's a bit of a bear market at the moment. When I talk about bear market, I mean a market that's sort of in a low point, right? Either declining or at a low point. A bull market is either a climbing market or a growing market or a peak point. Okay, so. Right now, it's in a bear market. There's been a few bull markets, particularly August last year and January this year. That was a bit of a bull market for NFTs. It's interesting how the fluctuations of as crypto gets cheaper, right? So for example, as it gets cheaper to buy an ETH, right? To buy one ETH, it becomes a little bit cheaper. All of a sudden, people start buying NFTs. Why? Because it's psychologically seemingly cheaper to buy in on an NFT, but really all that happens is the floor price goes up, so it ends up being the same anyway, but it feels cheaper because they're spending less money on ETH and therefore they're able to buy in on these NFTs. So that's why so many people jump in on NFTs when the crypto market goes down. But at the moment, both of them are down, you see. Crypto's slowly climbing back, but NFTs are still in a deep lull. So right now is actually probably the best time to buy in on potential blue chip projects. When I say blue chip, I mean any sort of project that has any seemingly long-term, heavy value utilization, or even the potential of becoming its own some sort of famous or prominent ecosystem. Okay, what I mean by that is if you look at, for example, VeeFriends, right? The way that Gary's going on and building an entire world around VeeFriends. That's what I mean by like an ecosystem. And if he brings out a currency, then it really will be an ecosystem, for example. But there's various other projects out there like that. Three Landers is one that I'm in. Love it. It's becoming its own ecosystem. That's one that I believe is going to be a blue chip project, which is why I've bought in on it. Another one is Farmland by Pixels. I've brought 2 pieces of that. And I've already made an awesome profit with it. Also becoming its own ecosystem, and a lot of various high tier NFT projects, including like CryptoPunks, VeeFriends, have talked about utilizing Farmland. I'm unsure if it's confirmed or not. It might well be, but definitely something to be aware of. So these are great projects, and right now they're cheaper than what they would be in a bull market. So that's why during a bear market such as right now, it's optimal time to invest in projects like these, but probably not optimal to flip because we don't have the inflow of market going on, the inflow of capital going on into the blockchain, and therefore there's far more what's it? Demand. Oh God. Oh man, it's completely. Nah, it's gone. I can't even think of the right term, but essentially there's far more pieces to buy. My brain's completely blanked out. I got to apologize because I've just come out of being sick, so my brain's just completely gone blank, as it would, because I'm not as sharp when I'm outside, when I'm coming out of low energy state. But putting it simply, right now there is a lot of NFT projects coming out, and there are far less people buying in on these NFT projects. Okay, so in other words, the amount of supply versus demand. Why could I forget that? Why did I forget supply? I forgot that word. So you can tell how unsharp my mind is right now, how blunt my mind is. So supply versus demand. So there's far more supply. The supply is still continually going, all right, because a lot of projects are still being released, but the demand's not there. So, massively hyped projects that are coming out are just flopping. Only some of them are making it, such as when Squiggles came out, for example, right? Or, some other projects that are similar as well that have, Squiggles, what were some others? Again, I've gone blank. I'm not going to recall them, so I'm not even going to try, guys. Today's not my day for that stuff. So putting that stuff aside, essentially, right now is the best time of all to buy long-term, not a great time to flip. Now, some of the stuff I want to talk about around what's going on with, the war that's unfolding is, first thing I want to say is, of course, naturally, there's so much uncertainty around it. With uncertainty, it's only natural that people want liquid, all right? So a lot of people that don't trust in the long-term vision of the market and are just in for sort of a quick flip or a quick trade, they're going to be selling out. They're not going to be, in the market. So they're going to have liquidated, which is why a lot of people as well are out of the market. Now, on the other end, because it's so uncertain, people are also trusting more in decentralization than centralized organizations such as banks. So, various organizations, even in Ukraine and Russia, but especially in Ukraine and Russia, as a matter of fact, are investing in currencies such as Bitcoin, such as Ethereum. I've heard people talk about Polkadot even, right, as currencies to look at, as trustworthy currencies to have their money in, because currencies such as the Russian ruble, for example, have dropped immensely. I think I read somewhere it was like 200 times down or something compared to the US dollar. I can't remember now. Something ridiculous. I don't think that's right, because that sounds too much, but it's something along those lines. It's just take my word for the fact that it's dropped immensely in terms of valuation against the US dollar. And overall, the Russian economy is dying immensely. It doesn't mean it's going to completely die, obviously, because at the end of the day, there's so many resources in Russia. But with that being said, it's far more secure, actually, for them to be in cryptocurrency than it is for them to be in their own fiat currency. In other words, their own dollar, right? I mean, if you look at, for example, the New Zealand or American dollar, right? If all of a sudden all trades were ceased from our country, and no countries, all of a sudden the other countries decided not to value our dollar, well, our dollar will be gone. Our dollar is actually not that secure as what people think, right? Sometimes it's actually safer to be in a decentralized organization than it is to be in your centralized dollar, in your fiat currency dollar. So, food for thought, guys. This is actually really important stuff. So that's why, yes, I have Liquid. And I liquidated as soon as I heard about the unfolding of the war, which was actually a silly move because I freaked out, and I partly regret it because I lost quite a bit of money doing that, which I don't regret at the end of the day, because I've learned a lot from that lesson now, because it's definitely not like the stock market. Because what happened is, as soon as the US stock market opened on the Monday, boom, it crashed. Whereas the crypto market is open 24/7. So that's the dangerous thing about being in the stock market, for example, is that if something happens overnight or over the weekend, you can't sell until it opens Monday morning when the market opens, but things would have crashed the second that the market opened. So I'm sorry, guys. That's like a lot of your potential liquid is drained immensely, is gone immensely in terms of the overall value you get that day. And of course, unless you trust in the market, then you can hold, which is obviously the most ideal situation. But people think, well, if there's a nuclear war, no one's going to care about crypto. No one's going to care about, NFTs. No one's going to care about a stock. Everyone's just going to care about a dollar note, at the end of the day, which makes sense, yes. But at the end of the day, what if that dollar note becomes completely worth completely nothing, right? At the end of the day, then, what if people trust in a Bitcoin and a Ethereum more, and there's going to be some people that probably will, just because it's decentralized. And, if, the New Zealand or US dollar just becomes, worth bugger all, just like how the Russian ruble is dropping immensely, then, you're probably safer in a cryptocurrency. So sometimes it's actually probably better to diversify. And now, this isn't financial advice, guys. Remember that. Always important to remember that my show isn't financial advice. These are just complete speculations, observations, assumptions, and opinions. So, I actually saw a story of someone, interestingly enough, being able to sell, I think they were somewhere in Europe, from memory, and it might have even been the Middle East, but essentially what happened is their accounts got completely closed. I think it was from Russia. I think they were a Russian person, and all they had access to were NFTs and crypto. They didn't have access to the bank account anymore. And of course, with the Russian ruble dropping as well, even if they had access, it would have been worth very little in that country. So he was able to sell NFTs and cryptocurrency that he had and live. He was talking about how he would have died. Because he would have had nothing. He would have starved and gone complete and died of dehydration if he didn't have access to his cryptocurrency and NFT stores. Whereas the banks can close you off. NFTs and cryptocurrency don't have that capability for the most part, unless you're with a particular centralized organization that's running that. Okay, because America's talking about doing their own digital currency, which I'm definitely very skeptical of. So these are just things to think about. there's actually been more donations through cryptocurrency to Ukraine, for example, than just about anything else. I think there was like $10 billion worth of US dollars worth of donations to Ukraine in the space of like a 24-hour period or something along those lines, which is a huge amount, guys. And the reason why it's so easy is because there's no limitations. There's no inhibitations. There's nothing holding people back from just going onto their wallet and sending it to the Ukraine wallet address that's been listed by the Ukraine government as a place where they're accepting donations for Bitcoin. So these things are really happening, and it is abolishing the charge that banks require in order to send money. It's abolishing the whole currency exchange situation in terms of the rates that you have to pay for. It's abolishing limits that banks actually withhold as well in terms of, so if you want to send money, it becomes not just far cheaper, far more accessible, far more easy, far quicker, because it happens in seconds. So, these things are just making this technology far more valuable than what people actually recognize. So even though this whole war is unfolding, it's almost seemingly like the decentralized systems are in some ways more secure, but it doesn't mean it is the secure, like completely secure, right? Remember that. Because again, that can, if people all of a sudden devalue Bitcoin or Ethereum and just say, oh, literally everyone in the world has decided it's worth nothing, then it will be worth nothing, right? But it's the same that will happen with the US dollar or the NZ dollar. So just bearing that in mind, which is why it's important to diversify. Some other news as well, or some other sort of speculations rather, based on the fear around when the depression happened and the stock market completely crashed, right? And even in 2008 when stocks took a big hit, you look at people speculating based off of that. So I'm making a speculation of people's speculations. People freak out about the fact that when things like this war happens, that, oh my gosh, like the entire crypto market is going to crash, like stocks crashed during the depression or during 2008. I'm out, right? I'm liquidating straight away. And that's what I did. And what happened is I sold my stuff for cheaper than what it was worth because everyone was doing that. And because there was far less demand than there was obviously supply, there was heaps of supply. So many people trying to sell, not many people buying. Devalued the stuff very quickly, so wouldn't end up making much money. But people capitalized on that, which were smart people, by the way, and now it's worth far more, right? So they made a lot of money from people, freaking out about that stuff. So if I had actually had the tenacity and the faith in crypto and in NFTs that I thought I did, which apparently I didn't, more so during the idea of a war, I'm like, oh God, what if the same thing happens, with stocks as with stocks? Then it makes sense to sell, but apparently it didn't. So it seems much more secure during this. And because people were speculating that's going to be the same as stocks, people liquidate. And of course, it decreases the value momentarily of these currencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so forth, and even the NFTs as well. With this drop as well, people will see the drop, and people that are just watching the market rather than the news will see the drop in the market, freak out and panic sell as well. So this is what generally happens during a drop and during a bear market. Is there's the initial movers which are basing it off news, and then there's also the people that are basing off market and being sheep, right, and just following the market. So it's like, oh, it's dropping, sell, right, because they think it's the end, but they're not playing long term, not recognizing that there's going to be another bull, as there always is, always. It doesn't matter what happens. I mean, look at all the stocks. Look at the stocks that went through the depression. Look at the stocks that went through 2008, and look at where they are now. Like, it's just insane to actually come to the conclusion almost now based off that, even that, oh, it's the end, it's never going to come back. But even if things did unfold in the most ridiculous way, things would find a way, things would come back eventually. It's just seemingly the way that it seems to be unfolding. And because crypto's not based off the dollar the way stocks are, it's going to be seemingly almost a more secure global point for investment and utility. So yeah, that's again speculation, that's observation. There were a lot of whales, meaning people that buy in bulk of certain things, such as when they buy a lot of one NFT project or a lot of one currency, they're essentially called whales, and they buy a lot and they hold, right? These are whales. So whales coming in and buying in bulk occurred during that whole craziness because they saw the long-term utility and value of currencies and of NFTs. Instagram also, there's news that Instagram's integrating NFTs as well. I'm going to actually get that right up right now. And in terms of what they're saying, that so Zuckerberg talked about how we're working on bringing NFTs to Instagram in the near term, guys. But over the next several months, the ability to bring some of your NFTs in, hopefully over time, being able to mint things within that environment as well. So I don't know how you're going to be able to mint things on Instagram, but it seems like it's going to almost become a marketplace for NFTs as well, right? You know how you've got options for Reels on your Instagram? You'll probably be able to go to a different option for marketplace for NFTs because your MetaMask will be connected to your Instagram and so forth, which is just insane. But you know, then people will quite literally increase immensely. They'll bring a freaking bull market right there, because all of a sudden, just by the way, I'll probably do a whole episode on this, Evan, but you know, people will literally be able to see your valuation just by going to Instagram, and they'll be able to see the NFTs you own, and there'll be an immense social currency behind it, which is what's been predicted for many months, actually for over a year now, by people like Gary Vaynerchuk, and even many more years by people like Beeple and, you know, people that came far before. So yeah, very interesting concept that's coming in, so definitely something to keep your eye on, and another reason why it's probably pretty safe to still be in this space. And then finally, other things that are happening, you know, bigger companies still believing in the space, like you know, a lot of big companies are honing in on the metaverse now more than ever, even more so. So that's saying something, right? And you know, collabs with certain NFT projects are happening with companies like Puma and Vans, and these are ongoing. These have just happened over the last week, by the way, guys. Like, these things are still happening. So the NFT space is as alive as ever. It's just not as alive as it was in January, which doesn't mean it wasn't as alive as it was this time last year. In fact, it's way more alive than it was this time last year. So just, you know, again, speculations, food for thought, things to think about during this whole time, this the chaotic situation that's unfolding in the world, not just with, you know, the war, but also with COVID, with craziness in terms of politics in many countries, just so many things. So I want to send all my love to, you know, all of you that are listening. I firstly want to thank you all for tuning into this, because that's the reason why I can even do this. Otherwise, if no one was listening, why would I do it? And I want to just send my love to you as well, just to say to keep safe, to take care of yourselves, to take care of your loved ones, to be play smart during this, play long term during this, because the future you 1 year from now is going to thank you so much for looking at this stuff during this time of this chaotic situation, this chaotic environment. And again, this isn't financial advice, guys, but please take what I've shared here, of course, with a grain of salt, but also as well as a potential movement for this whole space, and because I mean, I really see it personally as very likely that everything's going to unfold in a more proactive and positive way going forward, because of all the stuff that's going on. Actually, it's even going to enhance and speed up it, not actually slow it down or cancel it out. So yeah, these are just things to think about, guys. Anyway, hope this helped and brought some insights to you guys that may be freaking out during this situation, during the whole war that's going on, and thinking, oh, I want to keep out of NFTs and crypto. And actually, you might even want to think the opposite, right? So it just depends. But remember, keep liquid, but also as well, yeah, go in. And if you're really skeptical, then every time, you know, you see like a spike and you want to hold value of that currency, just like literally an hour ago, I saw Bitcoin go up freaking 5% in the space of an hour, which is just crazy. You know, then maybe you would transfer it over to USDT, which is a stable coin, right? So it doesn't fluctuate at all, aside from the fluctuation of the US dollar itself, right? So again, you know, it's only as stable as a US dollar, but you get my point, right? And then you can, you know, buy in again when, you know, there's a dip. So it's like, oh, cool, it's cheap, it's on sale. I'll buy in, and then you watch it rise again, then you sell out, get a stable coin. And, you know, there's many people doing that sort of thing, but that's, you know, not a bad way to play safe, fairly safe anyway, if you're concerned about the whole situation. And also, don't forget the USDT is always there. You know, you can go to MetaMask, Evan, and you can convert your Ethereum to USDT if you're ever concerned about the volatility of those currencies. But I feel pretty secure about them. I feel pretty secure about them long term. But if you need the cash, then, you know, during this time, it's probably good to liquidate a fair bit if you need the cash. But if you can, you know, keep it invested, fantastic. Now's a great time to get in my opinion, not a financial advice. So that's it, guys. So much love. Again, stay safe, guys. So much love. And yeah, if you can subscribe, leave a review, leave a rating. This helps us immensely. Please, please, please. If you found any value, that would help so much to get more of this stuff out to the people that need to hear this stuff as well. You can find me on Instagram, that NFT podcast. Again, in the description of this podcast, you'll be able to find those links.